Now we are going to transition to Dr. Jason Graham. So let me just spotlight him. Awesome.
Hi.
All right. Dr. Jason Graham will be demonstrating computer science's role in bee research. He is a bee researcher and has worked with honeybees and beekeepers for more than 12 years. And he earned his PhD in honeybee research and extension laboratory at the University of Florida. So without further ado, I'll let Dr. Graham take it away.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. I feel honored to get a chance to speak to you all about my research and how I've used computer science and bees together and how it's used in other research projects. So first of all, is there any beekeepers in the audience? And wave your hand. Be proud. You are a beekeeper. No? I'm not seeing many hands going up. So I'm not a web developer, not a computer scientist. But I am a bee researcher, I'm a beekeeper, and I see the tremendous value that you all bring to the table. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to be here to talk. And so first, since you guys aren't beekeepers, and I'm trying to bridge this gap here of my knowledge and your knowledge, I'm going to jump over to my PowerPoint. We're going to talk about bees. Okay. So I'm going to share screen. And you guys can laugh at how untech savvy I am. Well, I provide that entertainment value for. So if you see me goofing around with this stuff, then please teach me how to do this better. All right, so can you all see my screen, my PowerPoint? Awesome, cool. So first of all, this is me kind of getting started learning about bees at University of Florida. So I took a class for the fun of it, actually at University of Delaware, and got into entomology, which is the study of insects. So learn more about insects. I took a beekeeping class, did well in it, and then ended up getting an invitation to do my master's at University of Florida. So here I am at my master's at University of Florida, and I'm beekeeping. These probably don't look like normal beehives to you guys. They're actually bumblebee hives. So these are hives that bumblebees dwell in, and these are put in different agricultural spots to help with pollination. So now I'm going to jump down. So these are another bee home. This is for solitary bees. So some bees actually just live in tubes. They could be boba straws, they could be bamboo, they could be different materials. And I was curious, so there's a huge diversity of bees and they all prefer different kinds of materials. So I was using this kind of setup to try to figure out, do bees like small holes, big holes, bamboo, plastic, paper, trying to just look at, do some prefer to nest in wood that's been burned and versus wood that's not been burned. They like to nest in the soil. So I found this one bee. This is a chimney bee, pretty cute, right? So this bee nests in clay, and somebody had this in their backyard, this clay that they were using for landscaping. They called our university and said, should we get rid of this? Should we call an exterminator and get rid of these bees? And I came over and took a look, and they're actually solitary bees, so they don't sting to defend themselves. They're nesting in several different types of materials. And the homeowner, when they found out that they don't sting to defend their nest and they're good for pollination, they helped out with a citizen science research project to kind of study this bee and take care of it. So jumping down a little bit, I got interested in bees that are endangered. I thought, these bees that may have a relationship with a particular flower, that may be keeping that flower going just through pollination. So I got really interested in why aren't there any endangered bees? Because at the time I was looking at this, there wasn't. There was one bee that might have gone in danger or been considered endangered if it was able to get the status through the Federal Register. And so I worked with the department. So after I graduated from University of Florida, I went to Hawaii and started working on this project I went to University of Hawaii and worked on this project for endangered and threatened. We wanted to find out these endangered and threatened bees, where they lived, what they needed. So we did I did some research for a few years, and then we got this listed as an endangered species, and then this is what comes out on Facebook. So these are not the yellow-faced bees, but you see how media sometimes you get the wrong story, but the right I guess maybe came from the right place. Anyway,
Dr. Graham. Oh,
yes.
Sorry, so sorry to interrupt, but we can't see it's still on the title slide. I think.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, it's sharing the wrong. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. So let's see. Like I said, I'm not a computer scientist. I wish I was able to do that as well. Let's see. So you are on the title slide. I'm trying to increase my screen so I can see. So you see computer science's role in bee research right now?
Yeah. Okay, now I think it's, yeah. Now we see all the slides.
All right, I'm so sorry.
No worries.
It's okay. So here we go. This is me, University of Florida. I was looking at, these are bumblebee colonies. So if you guys were curious what I was talking about, that's what a bumblebee colony looks like. These are solitary bee nests. So the bees nest in these tunnels and tubes. These kind of solitary bees do not sting to defend their nest. So there's some pretty cool things you can do with education, sharing this with kids. It's cool for backyard gardens because you don't have to worry about a hive full of stinging honeybees. And we'll get into it more later. So this is the register on Facebook and things like that. We saw these popping up honeybees are endangered to the added to the endangered species list, but they aren't. The honeybees are not completely endangered. They do have problems of their own. But when we have to look at bees, there's a lot of misconceptions out there, and trying to clear a few of them up real quick. Bees are insects. So bees are animals, they're insects. They have a head, a thorax, an abdomen. Inside, it's not just bug juice. They have brains, they have circulatory systems, they have respiratory systems, muscle, all kinds of structures in there that are known, and we can dissect a bee and see all of this, the nerves, some really interesting pieces. So bees are very closely related to ants and wasps. One of the big differences, if you're not sure, am I looking at a bee, an ant, or a wasp? You have to look at it under a microscope, look at their hairs. So some of the bees' hairs are branched like this. Anybody have an idea of why that might be? Why the branched hairs are helpful? Bees?
To collect pollen?
Yep, absolutely. So they collect pollen. It's because their diet, they're pollinators. They eat pollen, they drink nectar, and that's their protein and their carbohydrates to keep them going. Unlike ants, which can eat just about anything, and wasps, which are predators of other arthropods. So bees can also be solitary or social. So ants are pretty much always social. Here's an ant and thousands of ants in the colony, and you can see how huge some of these colonies get. Here's a wasp. Wasps can be solitary or social. So yellow jackets, things like that, those are social wasps that can sting. They sting to defend their nest, but they chew up bits of the insects that they catch and feed that to their larvae. In the solitary case, down the bottom, we have this tube. It's like a bamboo tube. And the solitary wasp drags these katydids in, laid eggs on them, and then partitioned off some area for the katydids to develop, or serve as food for the developing wasps. Sorry. So with bees, it's the same thing. We have some that are social. We have these honeybees that are social in these big colonies of thousands and thousands of workers and one queen. So the queen can lay eggs. All the workers do everything else in the colony. To a different situation with these solitary bees, where one bee comes in and she lays an egg at a time into a long tubular nest or something similar, and then she flies away. And those eggs develop on their own without adults to care for it. So there's no adult bee caring for them. So here's again our honeybees. We have the queen, which you can see biologically is a bit different from the drone, which is the male, or the worker, which is the females that are sterile and cannot lay eggs. She's got a longer abdomen. And I'm going to show you something cool. This is just a quick video. You can find it on TED Talk about bees, but this is like shows their life cycle, if it works. Good. It's an egg developing into a larva. They're fed royal jelly. The larvae eat the royal jelly, and they get bigger. And this is kind of the pre-pupal stage. So they go from larva into a pupa. So if you saw something like this on the street, you probably wouldn't think, oh, that's a bee, right? Looks a lot different from what we think of as a bee, but this is the pupal stage. There you can see their brain developing through the exoskeleton there. See the exoskeleton hardening. I think you probably saw the varroa mites running around on the bee. So the bee hardens a bit more, and then the first job is the bee cleans its room, just like us, right? Go to your room, go clean your room. So it cleans its room itself and makes room for the queen bee to move in and start laying eggs for the next generation of worker bees. And this is just an ongoing process. So now you guys are pretty much experts on bees, bee biology. You got to see the whole entire thing go through. So we have egg, larva, pupal, and then adult stages. They have interesting communication, so they sense things through their antenna, which is covered with these little holes, and hairs, which is kind of like noses, brings in chemical smells, and that's what the bees use to sense their environment. They also see through compound eyes, which are made up of thousands of lenses. They sting, so that's one of the things we got to talk about with bees, right? They can sting. These bees will leave a stinger under the skin, and the serrated blade will kind of drive the stinger down. Best thing to do if you get stung, scrape that stinger out immediately and then clean the area. And you're probably going to be fine as long as you don't start having trouble breathing or swallowing. If you do, then you may be allergic to bees and need to get to an emergency. So real quick, I'm kind of going to cut through this a lot faster because I don't want to take too much time. I have to get this slide 86. So these are just pictures of how bees may be kept. Different types of hives, right? This is the standard honeybee hive. So you can see the honey, the pollen, queen bee. This is all brood. And people keep bees for a variety of reasons. They could sell pollen, they could sell the honey, they could sell beeswax, they could make more bees. They may do it for educational purposes. And bees are super important for pollination. So a bee goes to a flower, this white flower, and afterwards, the pollen that she leaves behind will change that flower's morphology. It changes the flower into a fruit. Starts out that plump white blueberry and ripens. Same thing here, we have this is a passion flower. After it's pollinated, we get lilikoi. Other flowers, same thing. We need that flower to get pollinated so it can become the kind of fruit that we like to eat. We typically don't eat a lot of flowers, right? But it's important for the flowers too, because with that fruit comes seeds. So, sorry, okay, I'll just jump into it. These are different kinds of diversity. So we understand pollination is important, right? This is diversity of bees. So there's lots of different kinds of bees. Not just the honeybee. The honeybee makes honey, but there's a lot of other bees that are important. This is an endangered yellow-faced bee, much smaller than a honeybee. Has the same general biology, right? Goes from egg to larva to pupa to adult. They live in Hawaii, right along the side of the beach. So this used to be my lab. I would go out here and I would look for these bees nesting in wood, nesting in trees. And this is my research block in the back here. Found out these bees nest in coral that washes up on the beach. And they also nest in stems of trees. And this is what their nest looks like. So at the top we have the egg, larva, pupa going into an adult. I put out these blocks to try to see if I could see what's going on inside those nests and put these tubes in the blocks. The bee would go into the tube and make its nest in the tube. So I could collect that data as far as how much pollen was there. little video about the bee making the nest. She uses her tongue to brush on this very thin layer of material that is kind of like silk, but also wet, and then it dries almost immediately and provides like a cellophane for them. These bees are only regularly seen in kind of two main locations. But I had worked with some students at Iolani Middle School, and they put together, can you still see my screen as well? I'm not sure if you're only seeing my PowerPoint, but if you could also see me. So this is a 3D printed tube that some students at Iolani put together to try to see if they can figure out whether bees prefer transparent tubes or opaque tubes. And they did this with several different projects. They made some blocks for us to hang up outside in their habitat. They programmed the router to put the exact size tube tunnel that we're finding in the wild, kind of to see if this would serve as a habitat for these bees. And several different projects. So they really helped out with that. And that's kind of one of the reasons I think it's great to share this stuff with students, because it's a win-win. You guys can help out with a project and then get some experience, and then also really be helping research at the same time. So that brings us to the reason why I'm here. So these are some other, so beekeepers are finding different ways to get revenue. One of the things is collecting venom. So there's harvesting bee venom is really important for, there's a a lot of people with different kinds of problems. One of them is Lyme's disease. So if someone has Lyme's disease, they could be on a very strict regimen of medication that could be harmful to them. They could be having trouble with it. And some have actually gotten off of some of those medications using bee venom if their body responds to it properly. So beekeepers can harvest bee venom using this glass plate. They have a battery-powered collector that has has a small pulsation. As the bees sting that glass plate, doesn't hurt the bee because they're not losing their stinger, but the venom is actually being able to be collected. This is being tested in a variety of different ways. Here's another. So this is some beekeeping apps that have been made available for beekeepers and have been really helpful. Hive tracks. This is so you're able to manage your apiary, so you know how many bees you have in each of your hives, and you can have someone else go out and check your hives for you and input the data so you can stay updated on how your bees are doing. Some of these are built in with scales. So you put a scale underneath of your hive, and as the hive gets more honey bound, has more and more honey, sends alerts to the beekeeper, like, you're getting a lot of honey in this hive. You can either probably split it, or you can maybe harvest that honey to sell. So these are some really good resources to help out. Beekeepers are really in need of help right now because the bees are having lots of different pathogens and pests and things like that that are affecting their colonies. So we're also trying to appeal to the new beekeepers, because the beekeeping, kind of, if you think of that, this feels like kind of an old career. Like, not a lot of people nowadays, are getting into beekeeping, but actually the reverse is true. I guess since more and more people are hearing about problems that beekeepers face, they think, what can I do at home? So people are designing bee hives that can be printed through 3D printers, scanners, things like that. Things like the flow hive, a way to try to make beekeeping less scary for someone, right? You just turn a switch and harvest the honey out of your hive instead of having to go into it. I think education is really important to kind of train beekeepers and share things with them so that they don't feel scared to go into their hives. But these are all improvements. This is all technology that, that STEM has led to bees. You have a bee box that senses your hive and can send security alerts if it gets too hot, too cold, if it seems like they don't have enough food, bees don't have enough food, or if there's threats inside the hive. There's sensors that can smell your hive, whether the bees are sending off alarm pheromone. So you can tell if your bees are being invaded by some other pest, or maybe a bear. If you have a bear attack your hive, then you find out right away, because that alarm pheromone is setting off a signature. Zombie flies. So these are a fly that was found here in California, and a whole zombie watch program was started um, as a result of that. And people all over the country can send in samples of their flies and then find out they're mapping where the zombies are. These are flies that go in and change the bee behavior and makes them fly out at night and will land in, usually you'll find them the next day lying in front of a lamp of some sort. There's a cocoon. So this is a type of high-tech beehive that stops varroa. So those mites you saw in that video that were walking around on the larvae that were developing as bees, those mites are really bad for honeybees. Probably one of the #1 enemies that honeybees have. So this type of device is used to heat up the hive to a temperature that the bees can survive, but the varroa mites can't. So it's used when the varroa mites are detected. It heats up the hive, and then hopefully the varroa mites will die because varroa mites will die if it's over 100 degrees, whereas bees can survive a bit higher. 3D printing helped out make these bee gyms. So these are little gyms the bees can walk around in and maybe knock the mites off of them, because it has a series of little flaps and strings and things like that that knock the mites off its body. So another way is how you can help. This is Inaturalist. This is a program that is used for a lot of different things. Has anybody used this before? Anybody familiar with Inaturalist? So Inaturalist is a program where you can take your smartphone out, you download the app, Inaturalist, and then you go out and you record an observation. If you see anything living, so it could be a caterpillar, it could be an elephant at the zoo, it could be a leaf on a tree, and you want to try to figure out what that is. Well, first off, after you take your observation and submit it, it'll first just leave kind of a blank. You can put what your observation is. You can say, you can use this to search for what species are around, or you can use it to kind of identify something. So if you take a picture of it, first you can write like bee. I think this is a bee. And AI will look at what that bee is and see if it kind of fits other pictures that look similar to that bee, and matches it up to, okay, I think this is a bumblebee. And then after that is a kind of final quality check. Volunteer taxonomists and specialists, experts go on here and they look through all of the sorted AI files and they confirm whether this really is a yellow-faced bumblebee or not. So what happens is we get all these pinpoints of bumblebees in that particular area. And then that's helpful for researchers. If I want to go find out where's the best place to find a yellow-faced bumblebee, here's my spots. I could also look at some of these pictures and see what flowers they're using, so I know what flowers to plant in my backyard if I want to attract yellow-faced bumblebees. And so first you enter your field, you say, okay, I think it's a honeybee. It'll record the timestamp and it'll record the location. Other useful tools, you could also bring a click counter and see how many times they're landing on a flower. There's a lot of different ways that you can do research with this. You just need really a smartphone camera and your iNatural app. So that's one tool that you can use. Another thing you can do at home to help out the bees, if you're not interested in working with this app, another thing you could do is this nest habitat for solitary bees. So you can actually create habitat for bees in your backyard. It's pretty simple to do. These are solitary bees. You can take a bunch of bamboo and put it into a can. You need to look at the size. So you want to go from anywhere from a 3/32 inch hole up to a 5/6 inch diameter hole. And there's a lot of research going on to see what's the best material, what's the best size, but it's all kind of up in the air right now. You see some anecdotal evidence for certain things or reasons why not to do others, but there's definitely a lot of information out there that's still to learn. So nest habitats, what happens is the bee will find your habitat, she'll look for the perfect hole for her nest, then she'll go and collect and store some pollen nectar in that tube. She'll lay eggs on it, and then she'll go collect some other kind of material to put in front of the egg to protect it and seal her cell. She'll work her way And at the very end, she'll seal it off with a leaf or a resin or mud, depending on what type of bee she is. We have wool tartar bees that go and collect some fibers from plants, like the wool from plants, and put that in front of their nest. So there's some habitat care that you have to worry about, like keeping ants out, replacing damaged portions of the nest. You need to monitor for mites. Sometimes these bees can get mites as well. So if you see a mite problem, clean out the nest and then maybe start out with new materials. It's really easy to make a liner. You just take wax paper and roll it around a pencil, and then make a tube like that, and then tape it. The bees will find something like that and start moving in. So here's another program. I'm not sure how much time we have, Diane. We're still doing okay?
Yeah, we have a few more minutes.
Okay, so I want to show you another one. This one's called Brood Mapper. So citizen scientists score bees to better understand bee health. I'm going to escape from this one, and now are you seeing my Brood Mapper page or no? I might have to stop sharing and then come back.
Oh, we can only see the slide with Brood Mapper.
You can only see the slide right now? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to go to your website. But this is basically a program where you can sit at home and help out bee research by looking at these pictures of bees. So these are frames of bees, and you can click on which bees are larvae, which are eggs, which are pupa. And when you go through and do this kind of scoring, it submits data to bee researchers who are trying to understand bee health better. So all these pictures could be taken really quickly, but looking at each individual cell to see whether we have a sick bee or a healthy bee is pretty hard. So asking citizens to go in and kind of score these for us has been really helpful for bee research. So someone can sit sit at their home and put an hour in on the weekend and score hundreds of frames. This is really helpful for bee researchers, and it's kind of like a game once you get into it. So that's the main things that I wanted to show. I was hoping to show this. See, maybe stop share. Try to stop share, and then I'll go to the Brood Mapper. Share screen again. Okay. Now, are you able to see Brood Mapper? Or?
No, we only see. Oh, now it started screen sharing. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, cool. So this is Brood Mapper, and basically you click on one of these cells, and whether you click on, say, egg, and every time I see an egg, I can click on one of the egg cells, put an egg in there. So this is kind of the idea of this program. If I use this, we'll automatically stop sharing. Yeah. So now I'm going to show you one more real quick. This is the Inaturalist. So if you happen to go to Hawaii and want to really help out with this project, this is Pollinators in Paradise, our project on Inaturalist. And so it already set the parameters. Can you see this okay? Say Bishop Museum up here in the corner, Pollinators in Paradise?
Yeah.
Yep, okay, great.
Yeah.
So this project, we have had over 1,000 observations. And these are anybody that takes a picture of a honeybee, wasp, anything that might be a bee, gets pulled into this automatically. You can also go in and kind of see some of the different stats of the different people that have helped out with this project. You get, as a researcher, you get your own kind of section here. So this is my profile, and I can look at the different species that I've observed. So you can, some of these are, so this is some stilts, some birds. You can see some out in the zoo. Kind of fun to do. So you just get different observations of animals. And when you get enough observations, then it helps the research in different ways. So, and also we could go to Inaturalist to look for a particular I want to go explore, you could look for, say, bees in you could look for bees in, say, San Jose or Cupertino or anywhere in the world, really. Take the bees, click on that, and then pick a location. So if we just say California, then this gives us observations in California of bees. So we can kind of scroll through, you can make a checklist off of this and figure out what bee species there are near you. You could go down to the town level, the county level. You can even put in a particular university. So in like Stanford, just the hiking trail, what kind of bees have been found there. So no results yet, but I'm sure there's bees there. So if you happen to like this area, get a couple pictures of some bees and then add that, and it'll and you can see these are the observations. You can click on any of these observations. So if I click on any of these pinpoints, it'll bring up that particular find. And this one's research grade, so that's helpful. It's vetted to the research level. So that's pretty much all that I have for my presentation, but there's a lot of different projects out there that you can get involved in with citizen science. I'm trying to put together some things for, okay? Try to put together some more projects with bees and beekeeping, and I could definitely use some computer science help. So if anyone's interested in volunteering some computer science expertise, help out with some of these new projects, that would be great too. I can connect you with other researchers. Does anyone have any questions?
Oh, someone asked what inspired you to do work involved with bees.
Oh, so one of the things, I guess I went back to school a little bit later in life, and I was looking to see what interested me most, because I felt like I would do better in classes that were very interesting. So I took some electives, and one of them was a beekeeping class. I thought it'd be really fun. So I put on a bee suit, went out, and we actually managed a hive for a full year. So I was able to open up the bees, or open up the hive and see them. It's a lot different than seeing it on video, but such a cool experience that I wanted to keep going. And as I go, I'm still learning about bees. Every time I hear someone else's talk or read a new article about a different species of bee, it's fascinating to me, so it just keeps on going. That's it feels to me about bees. And just how important that they are for the environment, both for our agriculture and then also natural ecosystems. So do you feel that orchard owners should raise bees, such as the orchard mason bee? Yes, I think that beekeepers should definitely have more options than just the honeybee. There's a lot of different, there's over 20,000 different species of bees, and we're really relying on just one for most of our agriculture. So using things like these solitary nests, we may be able to help agriculture where provide more pollination services for specific plants. Any other questions?
All right, if that's all, thank you so much, Dr. Graham. I hope everyone really enjoyed learning about all of these resources and Inaturalist. And now we're going to transition to, let me just spotlight her again. You guys know the drill. Okay.